Good morning, everybody. Let's have a look at Bitcoin and overview of the market, shall we? So Bitcoin still seeing that rejection that we talked about the other day, and obviously the pullback in the overall market that we predicted, I suppose you want to call it that, or we foresaw, I suppose is probably the best way to look at it. But what's going on? What's going to happen now? That's the main question. So the rejection took place. We've had 3 days of red, and today a significant red that's taken us down below the Bollinger Band, below the 21 as well. So unless we get drawn back up, from this area today, you do have to start thinking about, what lower targets it may or may not be able to see. I think the most obvious place is going to be here, which is the top, the previous high, which also corresponds to roughly the 50 exponential moving average on the daily, which roughly brings you to around about $112,000. That would be the next major low based on the daily. If you go down to some other shorter term time frames, we've got slightly higher than that, 113,600, so your 200 exponential, and then 200 simple is down there as well. So again, 112, sort of stating that that's probably the most serious area for a bounce. Obviously, we've got bearish divergence all over this, all over it really. And the money flow index was high, and it's now coming down, but it's still high. So look, series of high highs, higher lows. This was the high. Maybe we're gonna have to find a higher low between 112, maybe 109. The deepest would be down to 100, but I don't think we'll be seeing that. Maybe 103. I don't think it's worth sort of calling for these sort of significantly low targets right now. I think what we should be thinking about is how we're going to respond to these two as and when we get it, if we get it at all. The dominance chart had a bit of a pullback, so surprisingly, we're seeing, I wouldn't call it strength, but the damage has been done recently to alts, and now alts seem to have not made a new low for the time being. Is your XRP, which obviously made a wick low. I'm not saying that this can't come down further. I think it probably can. And again, Bitcoin is going to be the main driver of any other altcoin, as we all know. We always talk about that, don't we? Talk about it on patrons. We talk about it on morning videos. How no altcoin chart is traded within a vacuum. You might have a great setup. It might be at support, but then Bitcoin pushes it that little bit further down and sort of just breaks the chart to an extent. And I think that might be what we're looking at happening at the moment if Bitcoin continues to behave this way. So Ethereum has found support again, and again we're talking about lows. We've not made a new wick low. We're somehow holding above this horizontal. Take it or leave it. That's basically found a support again. If we're looking at candle bodies, which is sometimes worth it, ever so slightly high, and the wick's obviously higher. So long as we're maintaining 3,600. There's every chance of a continued bounce on this one, and that is why the dominance chart continues to be red for the moment. And actually, it could be the case that we see something similar. And again, I'm just saying the word could. I'm not saying is or will be. I'm saying it could be the case, as it was in the previous alt season of the same kind of time of market cycle. Could be the case that as we continue down on the dominance chart, Bitcoin consolidates also, as Bitcoin also consolidated and in the previous alt season, the one that was significant around here. So it found itself a peak. It was a serious peak as well, overheated money flow index read, but no bearish divergence at this stage, and then consolidated by 33%. So Bitcoin found a peak, a serious peak perhaps, not the top, but a serious peak. Maybe it's working on a consolidation that could take you anywhere between here to maybe even as low as below 100. Maybe. Again, I'm just trying to use my words carefully here, because nobody really understands the market. It was easy enough to find this peak because of the reads that we saw across the board saying it's too hot on the short term, we're likely to pull back. We measured the moves, deduced roughly around a 20% pullback for alts, give or take, some more, some less. That's easy enough. But to work out something as intricate as Bitcoin consolidating while altcoins continue up, that is a different thing altogether. I mean, that's particularly difficult to give any sort of degree of accuracy when you talk about something like that, because that generally goes against 95% of the way that the market works. But it doesn't mean that you can't trade within that 5%, because it happened in the past and it was serious, significant when it happened in the past. But is it going to happen now? Well, I mean, it's day one, isn't it? Day one of Bitcoin coming down lower than alts. It might just be that altcoins are just a little lagging at the moment. So, the Ethereum to Bitcoin pair is technically green, and it's still in a place where you would consider it to be an uptrend. It would be, and this is hidden bullish divergence marking off this low. The money flow index on the 4-hourly reached a serious low. There is no lower highs on this one. It's just trending with the price, which is reacting to a 50 exponential, which is all part of a golden cross. So I'm relatively optimistic, I have to say, about how this is going to work out in the very short term. It might be the case, and again, the operative word being might, it might be the case that we are seeing something similar to how Bitcoin and altcoins behaved in 2021, the early stages of 2021, where we had an alt season and Bitcoin would pull back, the market would pull back, altcoins would bounce and recover, whereas Bitcoin would sort of meander and then make another lower low. That might be what we're looking at here, but because we've only just started this situation, it's going to be very difficult to say this is exactly how it's going to go. I don't know. It kind of looks a little bit familiar. And if you're judging it by Ethereum to Bitcoin, I mean, that is actually a pullback yesterday that hit a 10 exponential, which is bouncing, which has also hit the 50 exponential on the 4-hourly, which is bouncing. And if it wants to bounce from here, we're not overheated anymore on the 4-hourly. In fact, we're looking for a turnaround, maybe to a new local high. If we move up here and get a lower low, then fine, you're getting a read of bearish divergence. But fine, it might be the case. And again, I have to use that word might, because I don't know. If it is the case, don't get massively overexcited, because this is still a massively bearish chart, where you could see a 46% move. You might even see an 80% move on the Bitcoin, on Ethereum to Bitcoin, and it all just be part of a lower high downtrend. These are all weekly death cross targets, and we are still hot over here. So I'll be very surprised, no matter how bullish you are, to see Ethereum reclaim and trend above this area anytime soon. Maybe ever, but certainly anytime soon. So long story short, we're going to take a step back. There can be optimism for altcoins at this point now. On top of that, we've also got stocks continue to make new all-time highs. No real signs of being particularly bearish at this level. Even on the daily, we do have bearish divergence, to be fair, on the daily on the S&P 500. It's just the pre-market here, but I prefer this chart to SPX or any of the others. And the 4-hourly again, 4-hourly still looking to make new highs with trend signals on this as well. So stocks pointing to one direction, which is up still. And that should allow for crypto to have a slightly more improved trading environment than if stocks were consolidating also at the same time. So stocks look pretty good. Bitcoin is not very happy. Ethereum slightly better. And your average altcoin watching Ethereum going, all right, what are you going to do? How are you going to play this? Because if you're good, I'm good. And if you're not good, I'm not good either. So, yeah, leave it like that, okay? Leave it like that. But overall, slightly optimistic, but still, that big pullback that we had in the market this week, as predicted, might still be pulling back. So, yeah, just sit and chill and allow for price to tell us exactly where it wants to go. Do I think it's the end of the cycle? No. Do I think it's a big pullback? Yeah. And, do I think it's going to bounce to a new local high? Yeah, I do. Generally, for most altcoins and Bitcoin as well, I think is all going to bounce eventually and make a new local or all-time high, depending on the nature of the chart. But were all these things overheated? Absolutely they were, which is why we were saying that there's most likely going to be a dump. But, looking at some of these charts, Ethereum especially, and, even with the pullback that we saw on something like XRP, I don't know why I'm searching for it, even with XRP, for instance, XRP hit the support on the daily, horizontal $3, 20 to 21 exponential. It hit that area and it's bounced so far. Based on the daily, it can come down lower. I mean, on the 4 hour, it can come down lower, but the daily is decent. And there's a lot of altcoins that have already done that. And so I think that there is a decent chance, not overwhelming, but a decent chance that those supports will hold. And Bitcoin, we'll just have to wait and see how Bitcoin's going to behave. But if Bitcoin decides it needs to dump further down to 112, those supports will probably break on altcoins, and we'll see. We'll just have to see how it plays out at that stage, to be honest with you. Right, I'll leave it with you there. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.